He called me a disgusting old man and shoved me onto the floor of the ballroom. My daughter, my own flesh and blood, just watched. They thought they had broken the old builder. They were about to find out I still knew how to tear things down. If you're listening to this, hit that subscribe button and let me know where you're tuning in from. Because this story, it's about foundations. The ones we build, and the ones that crumble. The music in the Grand Crystal Ballroom was too loud. The lights were blinding. Everything smelled expensive. Lilies, champagne, and a kind of money that made my skin itch. I stood near the massive double doors, twisting the brim of my old felt hat. My hands were rough, calloused. They didn't belong here. My suit felt tight across the shoulders. It was the only one I owned. It smelled faintly of mothballs and cedar. I hadn't worn it in 15 years, not since the worst day of my life. The day I buried Margaret. My wife. My anchor. I swallowed hard, pushing the memory down. Tonight was about Chloe. Chloe. My daughter. My only child. The light of my life. Even if that light had felt very distant lately. The ballroom was packed. Men in sharp tuxedos. Women in glittering dresses. They looked like exotic birds. Beautiful but cold to the touch. This was Ethan's world. It was never mine. Ethan Hayes was Chloe's new husband. The ceremony happened an hour ago. I watched it from the very back row. Standing room only for the father of the bride. He was an investment banker. He moved money around. He built nothing real. All I really knew about Ethan was the way he looked at me. He looked at my hands, my boots, my simple way of talking. He looked at me with polite disgust, like I was a stain he couldn't scrub out. And lately Chloe looked at me the same way. I hadn't actually been invited, not properly. Months ago, Chloe mumbled about it being a small, sophisticated affair. The implication was clear. I wasn't sophisticated enough. I wasn't good enough for her new life. I tried to help. I'm a builder. It's what I do. I put things together. I offered to build the wedding arch, maybe carve some centerpieces, something real, something made with love. Ethan laughed when she told him. I heard it over the phone, a short, sharp laugh, like a nail gun misfiring. We're having imported orchids, Thomas, he'd said, taking the phone from Chloe. His voice was smooth, condescending. Not firewood. Firewood. The word stuck in my throat. The wood I worked with built homes, sheltered families. It was honest work. He made it sound dirty, and Chloe let him. A week ago, a stiff cream-colored envelope arrived at my small house. The house I built myself. It wasn't an invitation. It was a notice. Time and place. Signed only by Ethan's parents, William and Patricia. It felt more like a summons to court. I almost didn't come. Almost. But I came anyway. Because she was my daughter. Because Margaret would have haunted me if I hadn't. Margaret was the glue. When she died, the foundation of my world cracked. I threw myself into work. Double shifts. Every job. I wanted Chloe to have everything. Maybe I gave her too much. Maybe I made it look too easy. Because somewhere along the way, Chloe stopped seeing the sacrifice. She only saw the sawdust. She stopped coming home. Her calls became rushed. It was always about Ethan. His deals. His promotions. His world. When I asked about her own dreams, she'd just say, I'm supporting Ethan, Dad. It's complicated. Complicated. That was her favorite word for anything that involved me. It felt like a wall she built between us, stone by stone. I finally spotted her across the room. Chloe. She was stunning. Her dress was a waterfall of silk and lace. Diamonds sparkled in her ears. Diamonds I hadn't bought her. She looked just like her mother. My heart squeezed so painfully I thought I might collapse. She was standing next to Ethan near the head table. Ethan was tall, handsome in a cold way. He adjusted his tie, a nervous habit he did when asserting dominance. He was talking to a group of important-looking people. Chloe was laughing. It was a bright, artificial sound. I didn't recognize it. That wasn't my Chloe's laugh. My Chloe snorted when she laughed too hard. This Chloe was a stranger in a diamond necklace. That wasn't my Chloe's laugh. My Chloe snorted when she laughed too hard. This Chloe was a stranger in a diamond necklace, and that realization hurt more than any insult Ethan could throw at me. I needed air. I started navigating the tables, heading toward the terrace for a moment. I felt eyes on me. I heard the whispers. Who is that? The father? He looked so common. I kept my head down, but that's when the first crack appeared in their perfect world. That's when I saw her. Sarah, Margaret's sister, my sister-in-law. She was sitting alone at a small table near the back, hidden behind a massive floral arrangement. She looked miserable. I hadn't seen her in months. Chloe said she was traveling. I walked over to her. "Sarah, is that you?" She looked up, startled. Her eyes were red, puffy from crying. "Thomas," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "I didn't think you'd be here." "I almost wasn't," I said, sitting down. The chair was cold. "Why are you back here?" "Chloe said you were in Europe." Sarah laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "Europe. Right. No, Thomas. I've been right here in the city." She leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Chloe told me the wedding was canceled. She told me they eloped last month." I stared at her, confused. The ceremony just happened. Why would she lie about that? Sarah looked down, ashamed, embarrassed. "Because she owes me money, Thomas. A lot of money." My blood ran cold. "How much money?" Sarah hesitated. $20,000. I loaned it to her 6 months ago. She said it was for a business investment with Ethan. She promised she'd pay me back after the wedding gifts came in. Then she ghosted me. $20,000. Chloe never mentioned it. She lied to her own aunt. She hid her wedding from her family. "She lied to you?" I asked, the realization sinking in. "She lied to everyone, Thomas," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "She's changed. This Ethan, he's poison, and she's drinking it down." Sarah looked at me, pity in her eyes. "Be careful, Thomas. They don't play fair." I walked away from Sarah, my stomach churning. Chloe wasn't just ashamed of me. She was manipulative. She was a liar, just like Ethan. I felt sick. The image of my perfect daughter was cracking, revealing something ugly underneath. But it got worse, much worse. I ducked into an alcove near the restrooms, needing a moment to process. My head was spinning. That's when I heard a voice, hushed, frantic. A young woman was on the phone. She wore a sharp black dress and a headset. Ethan's assistant. I recognized her from a photo Chloe showed me. "Maria, I don't know what to tell you," Maria whispered into the phone, pacing nervously. "The loan extension didn't come through. The bank called the note due." She paused, listening. Her face turned pale. "Ethan needs this tonight. He needs Stevenson to publicly back him, or the banks are closing in. Tomorrow morning." She ran a hand through her hair, frantic. "If this wedding falls apart, if his image cracks, we're ruined. He's ruined. The whole acquisition is built on smoke and mirrors. There's no real capital. It's all leveraged debt. Smoke and mirrors. The banks were closing in. Ethan wasn't a rising star. He was a drowning man. And he was pulling Chloe down with him. This wedding wasn't a celebration. It was a lifeline. A desperate performance for his boss. A sham. I stepped out of the alcove. My confusion was gone, replaced by a cold, hard clarity. I knew exactly what I had to do. I had to protect my daughter, even from herself. I started walking toward the head table, my eyes fixed on Chloe. On Ethan, the music seemed to fade, replaced by the pounding of my own heart. I clutched a small, velvet box, hidden deep in my pocket. Inside was Margaret's silver locket. A tiny picture of Margaret and me. A picture of Chloe as a little girl. I wanted her to have it. A reminder of where she came from. A reminder of what was real before the lies. Before the desperation. "Chloe," I said. My voice was rougher than I intended. She turned. Her smile faltered. "Dad," she said, her voice tight. You came." She knew I knew something. I could see the fear in her eyes, the guilt. Ethan stopped talking mid-sentence. He turned slowly, looking me up and down. The group around them fell silent. One man in the group, sharp-featured and smug, watched with intense interest. I recognized him from the business pages. David Chen, Ethan's biggest rival at the firm. He looked like he was enjoying the show. He sensed weakness in Ethan. "Mr. Walker," Ethan said, his voice smooth as polished stone. He adjusted his tie, again, the nervous tick betraying his anxiety. "What a surprise. We didn't see you earlier." "I was in the back," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I just wanted to wish you both well. Chloe, honey, I have something for you." I reached into my pocket and pulled out the velvet box. My hands were trembling, not from fear, but from anger. I opened it. The little silver locket gleamed under the bright chandeliers. "It was your mother's," I said, holding it out to her. I want you to have it, to keep her close to your heart. Chloe's eyes filled with sudden tears. She reached for it, her fingers brushed against mine. For a split second, I saw my little girl, the girl who wasn't ashamed, the girl who didn't lie. Ethan intercepted, fast as a snake. He plucked the box from my hand. He examined the locket with a smirk, his desperation making him cruel. How quaint, he said, loud enough for everyone, including David Chen, to hear. A little trinket. A trinket. Margaret's heart. A trinket. I felt a flush of anger rise in my chest. It's not a trinket. It meant everything to her mother. It's silver. Ethan snapped the box shut. The sound was sharp, dismissive. He set it on the table next to an extravagant floral arrangement. It looked insignificant. Worthless. Thomas, look around you, Ethan said, gesturing to the ballroom. This wedding cost more than your entire life savings. I'd wager we appreciate the gesture, I suppose. But this, he flicked the box with his finger, this doesn't fit the aesthetic. My blood ran cold. The aesthetic. My love for my daughter didn't match the decorations. Fit, I asked, hurt. It's a gift. It's not supposed to match the decorations. Ethan leaned close, his voice dropped to a low, vicious whisper. But he didn't lower it enough. He wanted them to hear. He wanted to assert his dominance. To prove he was in control, even as his world crumbled around him. You don't fit, Thomas, he said, his eyes cold and hard. Look at you. You smell like sawdust and old regrets. You're embarrassing her. You're embarrassing me. Sawdust and regrets. The words stung, but they also fueled my anger. He straightened his tie. My colleagues, my clients from the firm, they are all here. This is a very important networking event for me. He glanced nervously at David Chen, who raised an eyebrow. David knew Ethan was desperate. And you show up looking like a handyman. A handyman. A servant. A nobody. The words hit me like a physical blow, stealing the breath from my lungs. I looked at Chloe. Honey, is that true? Am I embarrassing you? This was it. The moment of truth. I needed her to choose, me or him. Truth or lies. She wouldn't meet my eyes. She stared at the floor, her cheeks flushed bright red. She said nothing. Her silence was a knife twisting in my heart. I had worked my whole life, so she would never feel ashamed. And here she was, ashamed of me. The betrayal was complete. I think it's time for you to leave, Thomas, Ethan said, his tone hardening. We have a reputation to maintain. We don't need your blue-collar sentimentality ruining the ambiance. Reputation, ambience, empty words for an empty man. I'm her father, I said, my voice trembling, down with anger. I have a right to be here. I'm not leaving. I wasn't going to be dismissed. Not this time. I wasn't going to let him win. No, you don't have a right, Ethan snapped. The facade was gone. The desperate man Maria described was emerging. The cornered animal lashing out. This is my wedding, my world. And you are not welcome in it. You are a relic of a past Chloe is trying to move beyond. A session. A relic. A fossil. Something to be buried. He took a step closer, towering over me. I stood my ground. She is my daughter, I repeated, my voice firm. That's when he lost it. The pressure was too much. The fear of exposure. The humiliation of my presence. It all erupted. Ethan's face twisted in absolute fury. He didn't hesitate. He didn't think. He just reacted, with violence. He shoved me, hard, right in the chest. I wasn't expecting the force of it. I was older. He was young, fueled by arrogance, rage, and sheer desperation. I stumbled backward. My heel caught on the leg of a chair. I crashed into a young waiter, carrying a tall tray of champagne glasses. The tray clattered to the floor. The sound of shattering glass echoed through the ball. A wave of gasps followed. Champagne splashed across my worn suit. I landed hard on the marble floor. The breath knocked out of me. The music stopped abruptly. The entire ballroom fell silent. Every single eye was on me, lying in a puddle of expensive champagne and broken glass. Ethan pointed a shaking finger at me, his voice ringing out in the sudden, horrifying silence. "You disgusting old man," he screamed, his face red with rage. "You should not have come. Get out. Get out before I have security throw you out." David Chen laughed out loud. A cruel, sharp sound. "Seems the rumors about Hayes' instability are true," he commented to the person next to him. Ethan's career was ending right before his eyes, and he didn't even realize it yet. I lay on the floor, stunned. My chest ached, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the agony ripping through my heart. I looked up at Chloe, my daughter. She was standing right next to him, her face pale. She did not defend me. She did not even look at me. In that moment, the crack in my foundation finally gave way. Something inside me broke. It was over. I had lost her. I slowly, painfully, got to my feet. I brushed the broken glass off my suit, trying to salvage what little dignity I had left. The silence in the room was heavy, suffocating. Judgmental? Ethan's parents, William and Patricia, rushed over, went cold fury on their faces. "How dare you make a scene?" Patricia hissed at me. "Your presence here is clearly a mistake." They were just as bad as him. Arrogant. Entitled. Cruel. "He assaulted me," I said, my voice low and gravelly. "You provoked him," William snapped, adjusting his cufflinks. "Ethan is under a lot of stress. This wedding is crucial for his career advancement. You should leave now before you ruin everything for them." Crucial? Because he was broke? Because it was all smoke and mirrors? I knew the truth. And soon, everyone else would too. I looked at Chloe one last time. She was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. But she still wouldn't look at me. Ethan put a protective arm around her, glaring at me as if I were a monster. My heart felt like lead. I had lost her to this world of lies and ambition. I turned to leave. There was nothing left for me here. I started the long, agonizing walk toward the exit. The crowd parted before me, their whispers following me like shadows. I just wanted to get out, to go back to my empty house, to the silence of my solitude. If this story is holding your attention, don't forget to subscribe, because what happened next changed everything. The storm was about to break. The grand doors of the ballroom swung open with a dramatic flourish. A new figure stepped inside. The whispers stopped instantly. The air in the room shifted. The tension snapped toward the entrance. The man who entered was older than me, late 70s, but he carried himself with an authority that demanded respect. He wore a tuxedo that made even Ethan's look cheap. His silver hair gleamed. He was instantly recognizable. Robert Stevenson, the titan of industry, a billionaire, and Ethan's ultimate boss. The chairman of the board, the man Ethan was desperately trying to impress. The man Maria said held Ethan's fate in his hands. The man who could save him, or destroy him. Ethan's demeanor changed instantly. It was almost comical. He practically vibrated with excitement and nervousness. He rushed toward Robert, leaving Chloe standing alone, his ambition overriding everything else. "Mr. Stevenson, sir, what an incredible honor." Ethan gushed, extending his hand. "I'm Ethan Hayes, your new VP of Acquisitions." Robert Stevenson stopped, looking at Ethan with mild curiosity. He didn't take Ethan's outstretched hand. Ethan's hand hovered awkwardly, rejected. "I know who you are, Hayes," Robert said. His voice was quiet, but carried effortlessly across the silent ballroom. It was a voice used to command. Ethan beamed, oblivious to the coldness. He thought this was his moment, his salvation. "Sir, please, let me introduce you to my new wife, Chloe." He gestured toward Chloe, who managed a weak smile. She looked terrified, but Robert wasn't looking at Chloe. He was looking past Ethan, across the room, toward me. A slow smile spread across Robert's face, a genuine warmth. It was a smile I hadn't seen in nearly 20 years, but I recognized it immediately. The smile of a friend, a partner. "Thomas?" he called out, his voice booming with surprise and delight. "Thomas Walker? Is that really you?" I stood there, dumbfounded. Robert Stevenson and I had a history no one in this room could possibly imagine. A history built on trust, loyalty, and a secret that was about to explode. We started out together, young, hungry, and broke. We swung hammers and poured concrete on the same crew. We started our first company together, out of the back of my old pickup truck. Then our paths diverged. Robert built an empire of glass and steel. I built homes, a quiet legacy of brick and mortar. We stayed friends but hadn't spoken in years. Life got in the way. Robert ignored Ethan completely. He started walking toward me, his arms outstretched. The crowd watched, bewildered. The humble builder and the billionaire tycoon? It didn't make sense to them. It defied their understanding of the world. He reached me and pulled me into a brief, strong hug. "Thomas, you old dog. I tried looking you up recently. I didn't expect to find you here." His voice was warm, genuine. "Robert," I managed to say, my voice thick with emotion. "It's been a long time." "Too long," Robert said, clapping me on the back. He noticed the champagne stains, the broken glass. His expression darkened instantly. "What happened to you? Are you all right? You look like you've been in a fight," his protective instincts kicking in. Just like the old days. Before I could answer, Ethan rushed over, his face a mask of confusion and rapidly growing panic. "Mr. Stevenson, sir. There seems to be a misunderstanding," Ethan stammered, sweat beading on his forehead. This man, he was disrupting the event. He tripped and caused a scene. He was just being escorted out. He tried to salvage the situation, to control the narrative. But it was too late. Robert turned slowly to face Ethan. The warmth in his eyes vanished, replaced by an icy glare that could freeze fire. I had seen that look before. It was terrifying. "Escorted out?" Robert repeated, his voice dangerously soft. "You mean you were throwing him out? Your own father-in-law." "He was drunk and disorderly, sir," Ethan lied. Desperation made him bold. "Stupid. He insulted me and my guests. I don't know how you know him. Perhaps he was a former employee. A contractor you used once? But he doesn't belong here, sir." Ethan sealed his fate with his next words, the words that would destroy him. "He's a nobody." Robert let out a short, sharp laugh, completely devoid of humor. He looked at Ethan as if he were the stupidest person on the planet. David Chen was watching intently now, sensing blood in the water. He knew Ethan was finished. "A nobody? A contractor?" Robert asked, skepticism dripping from every word. "You really have no idea who this man is, do you, Hayes?" Ethan froze. His face turned deathly white. He realized he had made a terrible, catastrophic mistake. I don't understand, sir," Ethan whispered, his voice trembling. He was crumbling, the polished facade cracking under the pressure. Robert stepped closer to Ethan. The entire ballroom held its breath. "This disgusting old man," Robert said, emphasizing the words Ethan had screamed at me, his voice echoing with contempt, "is Thomas Walker. He didn't just build houses, you idiot. He built this city." Robert paused, letting the words hang in the air. "A declaration of war. He built the foundation of everything I have," Robert continued. "When I started Stevenson International, I had ambition, but no capital. No bank would give me a loan. I was a risk, but Thomas believed in me. I remembered that day. I took out a second mortgage on my house. I poured my life savings, everything I had after Margaret's medical bills, into his venture. I risked everything, because that's what partners do. Thomas gave me the seed money," Robert announced. "He risked everything for me. We made a deal, written on a napkin and a greasy spoon diner, a partnership. He asked for only one thing, that his involvement remain silent. He never wanted the spotlight." The crowd murmured, stunned. The humble builder was a secret tycoon. "But that's not all," Robert said, his voice ringing with authority. "You see, Ethan, you pride yourself on being the vice president of acquisitions. You think you're a big shot." Robert pointed a finger directly at me. "Thomas Walker didn't just fund the company, Ethan. He owns 51% of Stevenson International. He is the silent partner, the majority shareholder." The silence in the room was absolute. Ethan looked like he was suffocating. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. He was drowning in the realization of his mistake. I had never wanted this revealed. I enjoyed my simple life. I liked being Thomas the Builder. The money was for Chloe, a safety net. I never told her, because I wanted her to value work, not just wealth. I realize now that was a mistake. A terrible mistake. He is my partner, Robert continued, relentless, driving the final nail into Ethan's coffin. The bonuses you received, the salary you brag about, it all came from him. Robert paused, looking at Ethan with utter disdain. He is, in essence, your real boss. Ethan stared at me, his eyes wide with terror and disbelief. He couldn't reconcile the image of the humble old man he had humiliated with the reality of the powerful billionaire standing before him. The cognitive dissonance was breaking him. The realization hit him like a tidal wave. He had just assaulted the owner of the company, his career, his future. It all crumbled to dust. Chloe gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. She stared at me, shock, confusion, then dawning horror on her face. She finally understood the magnitude of her betrayal and the cost of her lies, the debt to Sarah, the shame she felt for me. It was all based on a lie. Ethan's parents, William and Patricia, stood frozen, their faces ashen, their ambitions shattered around them. They had backed the wrong horse. They had bet on arrogance and lost everything. Robert turned to Ethan, his voice cold and final. You are arrogant, disrespectful, and utterly lacking in judgment, Robert said. You have no integrity, no character, no class. He paused, the silence stretching agonizingly. The verdict was coming. You're fired, Hayes, Robert said, the words echoing in the vast ballroom. Effective immediately, security will escort you out. Robert glanced at David Chen, the rival, the shark. Mr. Chen, congratulations. You are the new VP of Acquisitions. See me Monday. David Chen smiled, a cold, victorious smile. Ethan stumbled back, shaking his head in denial. Sir, please? I didn't know. It was a mistake. I apologize. Please, give me another chance. He was begging, groveling, pathetic. A mistake? Robert scoffed. You humiliated a man who is worth 100 times more than you will ever be, and not just in money, but in character, where it truly counts. Robert looked at Ethan with disgust, and judging by the whispers I've heard about your financial instability, Hayes, you needed this job more than we needed you. Smoke and mirrors only last so long. Robert knew. He knew everything. Ethan turned to me, his eyes pleading, tears welling up. Sheer desperation. Thomas, please, tell him, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. I love Chloe. Please don't do this to us. He tried to use Chloe as a shield, a bargaining chip. I looked at him, the young man who had called me disgusting, who had shoved me to the floor, who had poisoned my daughter's heart. I felt no triumph, just a profound, aching sadness, for the emptiness of his ambition, for the wreckage he had caused. You made your choices, Ethan, I said, my voice quiet but firm. You built your life on the idea that kindness is weakness, and wealth is everything. You were wrong. It was all smoke and mirrors. Ethan fell to his knees, sobbing uncontrollably. His perfect world had collapsed. He was ruined. Chloe rushed toward me, her face streaked with tears. Dad, I'm so sorry. I didn't know about the money. I should have stopped him. Please, forgive me. She tried to hug me, but I stopped her, holding up my hand. The pain of her betrayal was still raw. The fact that it took the revelation of my wealth for her to defend me hurt more than anything, Ethan had said. She wasn't sorry for my humiliation. She was sorry she had humiliated a rich man. You didn't know about the money, Chloe, I said, my voice heavy with disappointment, but you knew who I was. You knew I was your father, and you stood there and said nothing while humiliated me. I paused, looking at her. I had to make her face the truth. And what about Aunt Sarah? What about the money you borrowed? The lies you told? Chloe flinched. Shame washed over her features. She looked down, unable to meet my eyes. I was going to pay her back, Dad. I swear, Ethan promised. Ethan promised smoke and mirrors, I interrupted. He was broke. He was desperate, and you chose his lies over my love. I was scared, she whispered, trembling. I wanted everything to be perfect. I wanted to fit in. I was so ashamed of being the builder's daughter. I wanted to be sophisticated. Ashamed. The word hung between us, a chasm of pain and misunderstanding. Perfect, I asked, looking around the opulent ballroom, at the shattered glass, at the ruined celebration. Is this perfect, Chloe? A life built on arrogance and disrespect. A husband who despises your own father? She had no answer. She just stood there, crying, her beautiful wedding dress mocking the ugliness of the moment. I realized then that I had failed her. I had given her everything money could buy, but I had forgotten to teach her the things that money couldn't buy. The value of character, integrity, loyalty. By hiding my success, I thought I was protecting her. But I only made her ashamed of our simple life. I had to fix it. I had to tear down the facade to rebuild the foundation. It was time for some tough love. The wedding celebration is over, I announced, my voice ringing with a newfound authority. Chloe looked up, shocked. Dad? What about the marriage? She still didn't understand. She still thought this could be salvaged. That is a decision you need to make, Chloe, I said, firm. But I will not support it. I will not support a life built on lies. Ethan's parents rushed forward. This is outrageous, Patricia shrieked. The wedding is paid for. Still worried about the money, the appearance. It's paid for by me, I said, looking at them coldly. Robert had set up a trust for Chloe years ago, which funded this extravagant affair. And I can turn it off just as easily as I turned it on. Their faces turned pale. They finally understood the power dynamic had shifted. I turned to the wedding planner, who was standing nearby, looking pale. Please inform the guests that the celebration is cancelled, I instructed, and ensure that all the food from this event is donated to the local shelters. Immediately. At least some good would come out of this disaster. The planner nodded. Yes, Mr. Walker, right away. I looked back at Chloe. She was sobbing, lost and broken. The princess whose kingdom had just vanished. Dad, please don't do this to me, she pleaded. I love him. She still clung to the fantasy, the illusion of love. No, you don't, I said, my voice softening. You love the idea of him, the lifestyle. But that's not love, Chloe. Love is respect. Love is kindness. Love is standing up for the people who matter to you, even when it's hard. I took a deep breath. This was going to be the hardest thing I had ever done. But it was necessary. Chloe, I have made a terrible mistake, I said. I thought protecting you from hardship would make you strong. But I have crippled you. I have let you believe that my honest work was something to be ashamed of. I paused. The next words were painful, but necessary. The trust fund, I'm freezing it, Chloe, I said. Her head snapped up, disbelief and fear in her eyes. What? Dad, you can't have nothing. She was terrified. The safety net was gone. She was in free fall. You have your education, I said, gentle but firm. You have your youth, but you have to build it yourself. You need to learn the value of a dollar earned through honest work. But what will I do? She stammered. Lost, dependent, weak. I had done this to her, and now I had to undo it. You will stand on your own 2 feet, I said, and if you choose to stay with him. I glanced at Ethan, who was being pulled away by security. You will do it without my support. I had to break her down to build her back up. It was the only way to save her. I walked back to the head table and picked up the silver locket. I held it out to her. This is what matters, Chloe, I said, my voice thick with emotion. Family, love, legacy, not money, not status. She looked at the locket, her fingers trembling as she took it. She opened it, looked at the picture of her mother and me, young and full of hope. I turned to Ethan one last time, as the guards dragged him toward the exit. He struggled, looking back at me with fear and hatred. You ruined my life, he whispered hoarsely. He still didn't get it. He still blamed me for his downfall. No, Ethan, I said. You ruined your own life. You built your house on sand, and the storm washed it away. He was gone, out of my life, out of my daughter's life, Forever. I turned to Robert. Robert, thank you for everything. Robert nodded, his eyes filled with understanding. Any time, Thomas. You always had the better instincts. He put a comforting hand on my shoulder. Let's get out of here. We have a lot of catching up to do. I nodded, exhausted but resolute. As we reached the doors, I looked back one last time. Chloe was standing alone in the center of the ballroom, clutching the silver locket. She looked small and vulnerable. But for the first time in a long time, I saw something in her eyes besides ambition. I saw the beginning of understanding. I walked out of the grand crystal ballroom, leaving the glittering facade behind. The night air was cool and refreshing. I felt the weight of the world lift from my shoulders. I had lost my daughter today. But perhaps, just perhaps, I had also saved her. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. The story of the cancelled wedding and the billionaire builder spread like wildfire. Ethan's downfall was swift and brutal. His debts were called in. The banks foreclosed on everything. He lost it all. His reputation was destroyed. He became a cautionary tale. Chloe filed for an annulment the very next day. The marriage was over before it began. Ethan and his parents, facing financial ruin and disgrace, disappeared from the social scene, swallowed by their shame. I never saw them again. Chloe came back home, to the small, comfortable house where she had grown up. The house I built. The silence between us was heavy at first, a space filled with unspoken regrets and profound sadness. We were strangers living under the same roof. It was incredibly hard for her. She had grown accustomed to a life of luxury. Now she had to learn to budget, to cook her own meals, to clean up after herself. She had to learn to live like a normal person, the way I had always lived, and she hated it. She struggled with resentment. There were days when she lashed out at me, blaming me for destroying her perfect life. Her anger was a shield, protecting her from her own shame. Why didn't you tell me? She demanded once, her voice sharp with anger. We were in the kitchen, the scent of sawdust still lingering in the air. If I had known we were rich, I would never have been ashamed. The words stung, but I understood. If I had to buy your respect with money, Chloe, then it wasn't worth having, I told her gently. I held firm. I knew that this detox from entitlement was necessary. For her survival, for her soul. Slowly, the walls began to come down. The anger faded, replaced by a quiet introspection. She got a job as a receptionist at the local community center. It didn't pay much, but it forced her to interact with people from all walks of life. Real people with real struggles. She started to see the value in honest work. The dignity in a life lived simply. She even paid back Aunt Sarah, apologizing with genuine remorse. She was starting to heal, to grow, to become the woman I always knew she could be. We started to rebuild our relationship, brick by brick. It was slow work, careful work. We had to repair the foundation before we could build the walls. We talked about her mother, about my struggles, about her insecurities, and the pressure she felt to fit into Ethan's world. We started to understand each other, to forgive. One evening, about a year later, we were sitting on the porch swing, the same swing I had built when Margaret was pregnant. The air was warm. The scent of Margaret's roses filled the air. Chloe was holding the silver locket. She wore it every day now, a constant reminder of what mattered. I understand now, Dad, she said, her voice soft but clear. Why you did it, why you cut me off, and why you lived the way you did. I waited, listening, my heart full of hope. I had to, honey, I said, my heart aching with love for her. I wanted you to value yourself for who you are, not what you have, and I had to teach you what really matters. I wanted her to be strong, independent, kind, like her mother. I know, she said, leaning her head on my shoulder, just like she used to when she was a little girl. And I'm grateful. I was lost, Dad. I was so caught up in the money and the glamour that I forgot who I was. I forgot where I came from. I forgot the value of the hands that built this house. She looked up at me, her eyes shining with sincerity and love. I'm proud of you, Dad. I'm proud of your hard work, your integrity, your kindness. I'm proud to be your daughter. Tears welled up in my eyes. It was the moment I had been waiting for. The moment that made all the pain and heartache worthwhile. I had my daughter back. "I'm proud of you too, Chloe," I said, hugging her tight. So proud. I still had my wealth, managed by Robert, but I rarely thought about it. It was just numbers on a page. With Robert's help, I started a foundation in Margaret's name, building affordable housing and providing vocational training for underprivileged youth. I found a new purpose, a way to use my wealth to build something meaningful, something that lasts. I realized that the true legacy I wanted to leave behind was not a fortune of money, but a legacy of character, a legacy of kindness, a legacy of love. I was Thomas Walker, a builder. I had spent my life building houses, but my most important project, the one that truly mattered, was rebuilding my family, built on a foundation of love, respect, and the enduring strength of the human heart. And as I sat there with my daughter, watching the colors fade from the sky, I knew that I had finally succeeded. I had built something that would last forever. Thanks for listening. Please rate our story in the comments if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe. Your support means a lot. Because your time matters.